no escape in my bubble. Oh my God, here we go.
What?
Wow. Okay.
What?
This week's guest is a Broadway and off-Broadway star, a voice acting king, and a songwriting extraordinaire. You know our guest as Chopin in Harmony on and off Broadway, as Angel Dust in the iconic Amazon Prime's Hazbin Hotel, and so much more. This UMich grad has also released singles on SoundCloud, which include some of my favorite songs, such as Loved You Like a Religion and Mary Beth. It is my pleasure to welcome to Take a Bow, Blake Roman. Hi, Blake. How's it going?
Hey, that's
Oh my
thank you
goodness.
for the spiel.
Oh my God. I love to hype people up. So, like, I'm your hype guy.
Mission successful. Like,
Thanks, man. Hey, what can I say? You're really cool. Like you've done a lot of really cool stuff. But just I like to usually like start at the beginning, and like I named all of this incredible stuff that you've done. Like, how did we get here? Like, how did this whole thing start? What inspired you to want to get into this? Is this something that kind of like like you fell into? Like, did you ever want to be on Broadway? Like, what was the story here of Blake Roman?
Mhm. I mean, look, in terms of like voiceover, I played a lot of video games growing up, and that was kind of where that came from. Like playing these video games and seeing, googling the voice actors, behind the characters that I loved was just like such a cool and like oddly mysterious venture for me as a child. I'm like, my God, who are they? Da 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 da, and the layers to it too. I mean, just like it seemed like so much fun. So I mean that was always like a facet for me that I really wanted to dive into. I've been songwriting since I was, in middle school, and like I had a family friend give me my first guitar, and I remember being like, yeah, all right, I'll play with it. And then I was like, oh my God, wait, this is how I want to express myself. This is how I want to, and then acting was also just something that, I started doing musical theater in 5th grade. And the weird thing though, is that I've never once in my life felt like, this is the direction I want to go. I've never been like, musical theater is my thing. I want to be, like I'm on Broadway or I'm gonna die. Like,
Right.
it's that I really just want to do as much as I can within the entertainment industry. I like the flexibility of crossing over mediums, and I love each of like the facets of the industry like so much that it's like I couldn't just pick one. No, like I love musical theater and I also love voice acting. And it's funny, I do have a lot of people come up to me and are like, so like when did you decide to stop doing Broadway and start doing voice acting? I was like, it doesn't really,
Oh,
it doesn't really have to work like that. There's a lot
yeah.
of crossover. So I think that's kind of, where it started was I followed my interests in whatever
Yeah.
capacity, they were. It kind of led me into a little bit of a moment when I was trying to choose what I wanted to go to college for, because I was like so non-committal to any specific direction. And then I ended up going musical theater because it seemed like the good midpoint between a lot of my interests,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's nice that it does, acting, singing, dancing, like, it does
yeah,
cover
yeah.
everything.
A bit of a catch-all. Yeah.
Yeah, and,
Mhm.
you obviously do it all so well that, you went to one of the most prestigious schools in the country for musical theater. The program at University of Michigan is top notch. So, like, what was that whole thing like? And, eventually moving away from your family and deciding to go to UMich, obviously, like, you grew up on a farm in PA, right? Like it's
I
kind of,
did.
was there a lot of like art out there? Was it always in your room and then you kind of get to Michigan and you're like, wow, I'm like surrounded by it? Or was it kind of you were always go for it?
No, no, it was the complete opposite. I mean, it was that I was not surrounded by it. I was the only person in my school that really like that went out for musical theater at the time. And
Right.
and there was really just like, I felt like I had missed the boat so many times in terms of like what I should have done in order to prepare for this career path, and there was a performing arts school, high school that I could have gone to, but because I hadn't really figured out that it was something I wanted to do until later in high school, it's like you can't really transfer. And so I was at this high school that would rather spend like $2.6 million on a new football turf for their football team that can't do shit for instead of giving money to the arts, like any money at all at the time. I don't know if they've
Yeah.
changed their tune, but so there was just like nothing in that capacity other than like, albeit there was a theater program that really helped me get started. And then I was like, okay, let me at least do what I can and go and do community theater, which really was what opened everything up for me at the Erie Playhouse, was just the community that I found there, and the group of people that like I was like, wow, 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 we all really like we all really like theater, and we're doing it for free because we love it so much, and that was like just kind of a very big moment for me, and that actually propelled me into doing college auditions and everything. But I didn't actually get into any schools the first time around. I mean, I auditioned for like a voice major at Berkeley College of Music in Boston, and they accepted me, and then but then I didn't get into anywhere like for musical theater, and I was like, "Ah, hmm, I'm gonna defer, and I'm not gonna actually like do this thing because I just wasn't committed." Took a
Wow.
gap year, auditioned for like 10 schools, and ended up getting into Michigan and a couple others, and then it ended up working out. But it very much was like, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I had a little bit of an imposter syndrome. Um,
Sure.
Not having like, I didn't know what the heck the Jimmy Awards were, or like any of the, I didn't even go to like states with my choir or anything. Like there was all of these things that it seemed like theater kids who were going out for theater had on their resume already before they even auditioned
Right.
for schools, that I'm like, well, I have, I don't I like to sing, like I like to act. But I mean, even when I got to Michigan, I was pretty aware that like the only shows I really knew were the shows that I had been in. I didn't really know, I'm sitting in like empty history, and everybody's like, "Oh yes, well this season is da 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 da." I was like, "Yeah, I don't really know. I like what I'm
I'm
doing, but I
still
just don't
that
know it.
way.
I don't." Yeah, truly.
I know, like, it's so bad. I know nothing about Broadway until, like, I moved to New York. Like, we were just I mean, we live far away, but, like, fairly in the same, like, region of land, from each other, and so or, like, I guess where we're from. So, like, we were, like, totally secluded, at least in my, you know, my experience.
Yeah.
But, like, I did know, so, like, we would travel when I grew up to Pittsburgh and do the Pittsburgh CLO. That's where, like,
Yes.
I kinda you're familiar with that, right?
I'm familiar with Pittsburgh CLO. I auditioned once when I was in school. We like took a road trip down and auditioned for Once the musical
Oh, sick.
when they were doing that one, which is still hilarious to me that we literally drove like 5 hours to audition, and
Yeah.
then them be like, "Cool, peace out, Girl Scout." Be like, "Cool, alright,
For
bye."
what, 10 minutes?
For, like, 5 minutes, like, it's
Yeah, exactly.
crazy. I'm like, "What were we doing?" I feel the same way about the Muni too. But we were just, that's being in college, baby. It's just trying so hard.
Right. No, so
Yeah.
true. But that's awesome. So that it's crazy, and then just like being in the world and surrounded by all these people, it's that imposter syndrome again, where it's like these people are way smarter than me, they're way more
Right.
prepared than me, like all of that starts to creep inside your head. But
For
hey,
sure.
keep doing your thing, and here you are on Broadway.
But it's
And
it's it's silly, right? Like we do hold ourselves to the comparison mindset is so impossible to get away from in this industry. And but like really that was another thing about like getting out of college that was so wonderful, is because when you're in college everything's so strategic and tactical. And yeah, I literally, like, I left freshman year feeling like I had multiple personality disorder, because I was constantly thinking to
um,
myself, like, what is the best way for me to purport myself, and what is the most successful way for me to be a person, to succeed in this career, to succeed in life and with friends, like all of this. Holy shit, like pressure, pressure, pressure. Um
yeah, man.
and so much of it was like me thinking how I should be, rather than actually discovering how I am and being okay with that, and letting that be what sets me apart from other people, just the innate individuality that you hold as a human being. And that's something that very much so, I until I graduated from college, it was kind of hard getting over or getting to that point.
That's so real. Like, I thought when I was a kid, like, I knew exactly who I was. I knew what I wanted to do. Like, I was gonna, like yeah, I was gonna have no like obstacles get in my way. Like, it was
Yeah.
just
Oh
like
yeah.
it's and then freshman year of high school, it was like I like don't even know if I've ever like had a conversation Eli to Eli, like it's
True.
always
Like, have I ever actually spoken to myself?
right, like who the hell am I? Like I've spent my
Yeah.
whole life, being like a character, like or like trying
Yeah.
to be a character and find characters, and I never like was like, wait, who's this kid? Because people were asking about me. I was like, hell if I know,
I
So
know, I
it's
know.
I totally get what you mean.
Yeah.
Freshman year of college is no joke.
No,
But you made it out and you crushed
we
it
did. We're
and
here.
made you made it. We survived
We did.
somehow, some way. And you made your Broadway debut this past season in a historical show, a show that was trying to come to Broadway for decades. 30 years, was it?
Literally, like, crazy. Yes, yes.
So,
Wild,
like,
right?
wild. And the fact that it was a part of this season, and this was a such a pivotal time to tell that story,
Mhm.
to be a part of that and to finally be the originating that production on Broadway. What did that kind of mean to you? And you can kind of just talk from even off Broadway and just finding out who Chopin was and eventually being able to just tell the stories with these five other great harmonists.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing that struck me about the process was just how wonderful of a team we had right from the get go. The six of us that were the harmonists, they kept us. We were at the first workshop of this iteration, before off Broadway, and they kept us all the way through. The six of us through
Wow.
Broadway, because they understood the necessity of the cohesiveness of the group, right? And also, it was just such a wealth of material, that we all had to learn and really get enmeshed with each other and synchronized. And it was a lot of work. And then it just made sense that it's like, okay, cool, like this is our team now, like this is
Yeah.
the group that we have to have. It actually behooves the story and the quality of the production for the six of us to have history over the course of 2 years of the 2 years of us doing, two or more actually, like of workshops and off Broadway and more workshops and then Broadway. Um,
Mhm.
so, obviously that's nothing in comparison to how long Bruce and Barry have been trying to make the, project happen. Um, but yeah, so I mean, like our group, our cast, the creatives was the first thing that hit me where I was like, huh, like I hope this is how all Broadway is, or like where there's just there's such heart behind the project. And so I think we were very hearing stories from other people, I'm like, I think we were very lucky in the mix of people we had in that cast and in that creative team. But beyond that too, I mean, the facet of the show that like was so interesting to me was playing somebody who actually existed at one point in time.
Yeah.
And what is where's the line that I want to ride between Chopin, the actual person that lived, and then my interpretation of the character in this script, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's the same thing that Bruce, the book writer and lyricist, like that he had to kind of surmount that obstacle of being like, okay, I can't I can't tell like the biographical story of these men in 2 hours, or 2 or more hours. Like I literally have to find a way to distill it in
Right.
in in a fictional capacity that still retains, as much nonfiction elements as possible. And so that for all six of us guys from an acting standpoint became a very important objective, to discover as much about these men who very much like are not mainstream known about, we
Right.
looking up different sources, documentaries, books and interviews to get an understanding of like what are these people's energy, what made the mix of their energies like so iconic that they blew up in the way that they did at this time. And so, it was a really cool process of just like digging through biographical information and then making creative choices based off of that. You don't always get the luxury of having source material to base a character out of,
Right.
and it was really cool to do that. But there's also picking the moments in which, okay, to serve the story, to serve this theme, or the cohesiveness of my character, I think I'm gonna have to make an executive decision as to like this is how Blake is playing Chopin, rather than this is how Chopin was Chopin, or Irwin Boats, was his actual name, but this is how Irwin Boats, would have been. It it's just riding that line between fiction and nonfiction, and trying to do the story as a creative thing justice, but then also do the uh, the lives of these guys justice and their story justice.
Absolutely. And like you talking about, finding that balance between Blake Chopin and Chopin. Like, what was that? How did you kind of navigate that? Have you ever done that before, or like, are you having conversations with Warren, or are you having conversations with the harmonist? Is it a combination of all of those things, or is it you kind of literally finding it as you go, or either at home, like practicing your lines, whatever? What
Is
is that whole
everything.
process? Yeah,
It is everything and all of the above, right? Like you pull from as many places as you possibly can for inspiration, and you rely on, especially in a show that has such a relies on the dynamic of those 6 guys, like, yes,
right,
we were going back and forth, the 6 of us being like, what is Chopin and Bobby's relationship? What is, Rabbi and Lesh's relationship, right? And how does that inform this scene? Um, so that we can give as much um, background or subtext, to the audience as possible, so that they can, in some way, in some semblance of a way, see how nuanced these relationships were over the course of these men's lives. Um,
Right.
so it was cool. It was a whole
I love it.
combined effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I'm curious to know, like, that okay, like, no matter, like, who you are or, like, what you've done, I just feel like, walking into rehearsals first day, you got Barry Manilow, Bruce Sussman, you have Lauren Carlisle, then you have Chip
hmm
Zien, Sierra
sure,
Bog. It's like, like, it's just everyone from literally both sides of the team, just, like, top notch, like, just
yeah.
absolute stars. Like, what what was that like? And, like, at what point, like, were you ever nervous? And, like, at what point do you kind of, like, say, like, "Okay, I'm here for a reason. Let's collaborate.
Sure.
Let's do what I know how to do." Or is it kind of like that first day, you're like, "Oh my god," pinching myself, type of thing?
I think it very much is a process of being letting yourself be starstruck, right?
Yeah.
And then and understanding that any imposter syndrome that you might feel is natural, and
Mm,
letting that be okay. Um, and so, like, first day, sure, it was very much like, I'm like overthinking things I'm saying, things I'm doing, ways in which I'm presenting myself, and falling back all into those old habits in college.
yeah,
And then the job just keeps going, you
right.
know, and you keep going back into the rehearsal room every day with the same people that, sure, you maybe like had a poster on your wall of, when you were
Right.
growing up, or that your mom, is obsessed with, growing up as well.
Literally.
Um, but then you keep coming back, and you keep coming back, and you realize that thinking in that way, and the imposter syndrome, is going to corrode your ability to actually do the job. And in fact, maybe at the bottom of all of this, we are just, no matter what level we're performing at, just people
Right.
collaborating, working to make a story that we hope will be meaningful to somebody. And hopefully make us some money. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, this is a job that we all do, and this is our profession, and it's nice to be starstruck, but it also has to get to a point where you're like, okay, cool, they're a person like me. Every single one of us put our pants on, one leg at a time this morning, and came
Yeah.
to rehearsal, and there's no need for me to ostracize myself or make myself feel different from anybody else, when, quite frankly, we're all performing on the same level.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that.
so yeah, yeah,
It's sick. It happens a lot in our industry too, because, like, I feel like, we grow up. It's kind of like we were talking about. I don't know if it was during this or like before we were talking, and it's like that comparison. It's like, oh, they've worked with this person, and like Julie, she's played opposite of this guy, and so maybe if I do
sure.
something like that, the chemistry will come more now. Like, it's just
I
like
get
you
it.
do all of
There's
these things,
uh-huh a
and
million
so,
ways
like,
to get up in your head.
right. And
Yeah,
so that kind of reminder of just, like, hey, at the end of the day, we brushed our teeth this morning. We're all looking at this script maybe for the first time, or like,
yeah,
on the actual first day, we're all trying to figure out what this story is. Like, we're all starting at square one today,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Um that's a great piece of advice. So, I'm curious, even outside of the show, right? Obviously still within harmony. What was one of the coolest, like, experiences that gave you? Because as you kind of mentioned, my mom's a huge fan of Barry Manilow. We were at Radio City the night that you guys performed with
Oh,
Barry.
really? That's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That
Yes,
that was a crazy night. I mean, you talk about, like, awesome stuff that happened, surrounding the whole show. I mean, that was cuckoo
really.
banana pants. Like, it was really wild. I've never been I I I don't think I've ever been in a space like Radio City where I walk out on stage and the whole place, like, how do I put this? Okay, you know when you walk out on a dock or you're out on a boat on the ocean, and like
Sure.
it just feels like totally like wide open, like it absolutely, like, literally, I don't know why that's how Radio City made me feel. It was just
Wow.
it felt like I was underwater, or I felt like there was just this huge, immense thing in front of me. I don't know. There's something about being inside a building and there being that much space in front of you, and a whole
Yeah.
other thing being up on stage and looking out at 6,000 people, I think, is how many people like, that's
Right.
crazy. I had the same, like, surreal feeling at Michigan when we go to, like, the big house for football games. That
Sure.
is a stadium that seats 111,000 people, which is more than, even is in the Erie County area where I grew up, right? So it's like it was one of those feelings where it was just like, wow, okay, it took the breath completely out of me. I need to just give myself a second,
Yeah.
and we're gonna do the number. It was
Right.
crazy. Yeah.
It's wild. And that was like the first. I think it was in between off Broadway and Broadway, right? Because I think you guys were announcing, like we're going to
Yes.
Broadway with that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
so you had already known him, but like you kind of were just doing a sneak peek of the show. Like, is that kind of like weird to just like do it like out of sequence, or do you kind of just like where you are
Mm.
in the show, you just did it off Broadway, and so like here, well, let's just go out and do it, or is it maybe there were changes? I don't know. Like what
It's
was
I
that
mean,
whole
there
thing like?
definitely there definitely were changes. So we did the opening, like, song for a lot of, like, different press events. I mean, we did it on the Today Show, we did it at Curtain Up, we did it at
Yeah,
Radio City, we did it at a lot of different places, and each of those places had variation on the choreography.
yeah,
Some of the variation, we like, especially at Radio City, we um Warren had choreographed the whole thing. We had like a week and a half, 2 weeks to, like, just make sure we all felt good about it, because we were all, movers. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, there are some people in amongst the six of us that are dancers in comparison to people like me, who is a mover with a lowercase m. Like,
right.
but we're all generally, like, according to Warren, there was there was a moment actually for the rehearsal for Radio City where we went in there and we started getting, our footing, the choreography under our feet, and he was like, and the one and oh, good lord, I forgot you all can't dance. And we were like, all right, yeah, yeah, you're right, you're
Yeah.
right. We're gonna do our best stuff. We're gonna do our best, Warren. It was so silly.
Yeah.
That's another dynamic that is so interesting to me. Warren Carlisle being such a prolific choreographer and used to working with, like, such freaking talented dancers, and
Yeah.
then us six guys, like, walking in there, like being like, "Hello, please move us around the stage. Tell us what to do." We
It's
really did
hilarious.
our best. But yeah, so he choreographed, like, a whole thing for Radio City, and then we got there, we did the sound check, and then there was an executive decision that was made to change, like, the choreography the night before.
Of
Um, uh,
course.
uh, yeah, yeah, to make it a little bit more like, I guess concert, like, I forget what the reasoning was, but regardless, we all had, like, mini panic attacks.
Yeah, right?
But but that was there was also Carnegie Hall too,
Oh,
that we danced at. You know, we did the opening number at, and then Stars in the Night as well. So all of those had different variations of choreography for it, because we were in different spaces. You
right.
know, each space didn't really maybe did let six guys walk around and have a lot of space, or some just really didn't. So we had to alter things for it.
Yeah, I feel like those, like, concert, press, whatever performances are more nerve-wracking than, like, doing the actual show itself. I
Yes,
don't know why, but, like
correct.
and probably because of the variations that you have to do or, like, the cuts, maybe you have
Mhm.
to do, like, a condensed version. Um
Well, I had that with, like, my original music. I get a hell of a lot more, anxious, when I am it's literally just me singing a song.
Really?
I mean, especially there's layers on top of it of, like, "Oh, well, this is my song, and this is something I wrote." So, like, that's another thing that, like, kinda can add to anxiety on top of it. But there is something about being able to perform within the context of a story, where I am a
Mhm.
character, and I'm a character singing this story, rather than, "Hi, I'm Blake and I'm singing a song from Harmony," or, "Hi, I'm Blake and I'm singing a
Right.
song that is from, like that I wrote or something," like,
But you can kinda put
it
that
is
mask on,
different.
right? You become a
Exactly.
character. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bit of distance, I guess, in term, you have the fourth wall goes up,
Yeah,
whereas, um, when you're doing a concert or something, like, that doesn't exist, at least in most
right.
concerts. Yeah.
I love this. I love these conversations. I could literally talk about it forever. I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff. Um,
Yay.
by the way, really great Warren Carlyle impression because
Ah!
he was my choreographer in A Christmas Story, and
Oh, true!
like you
Oh,
said, man,
it's
I was Warren,
he's
I will stand in place and toe touch, like step
yeah.
touch, like that's all I got
You
for
know
you.
what I got? What I got from I got a bunch of Warren isms. I didn't even try. That you just I just picked them up. But he like goes like this when he's
Always.
just trying to feel like his heart space and stuff. And
Yep.
there's like a bunch of like Q&As online that are like for Hazbin that I've just been like answering, and I'm like da, 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 like rubbing my fucking like heart, and and people are always like, oh, I love that, like when he does that, like that's so nice. I'm like, well, that's Warren
Oh,
Carlisle. It also, what it also makes me think of? Have you ever seen the video of Pedro Pascal on like the red carpet with oh, what's her name? What's her name? Plays Ellie in The Last of Us.
oh god, I can't
Uh,
help you there.
okay, yeah, but
I'm
she,
sorry.
no, you're good, baby. I'm sorry. But he was like posing with his hand over his like heart or like solar plexus type area, and she
Yeah.
was like, she like imitated him, was kind of like making fun of him, and he was like, you know why I do that, right? And she was like, well, why? And he was like, because that's where my anxiety is, and so
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to like hold myself, and
Oh my
like, and I remember like that's kind of like how I feel like whenever I do anything like that too now. But
Oh,
he also from day one was like, he was like, Blakey. Like, and
isn't
then
it so cute?
everyone in the cast started calling me Blakey, and I was like, all right, well, I'm fine with
There
this.
here we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Were you
uh,
kinda like the little brother almost? Like, is that
I
what
mean, sure, yeah. I mean, I could
Blakey
understand that being the case, maybe, like
that's so
I don't know. I enjoy it. I enjoy any nickname I can get, because I feel like my name doesn't really like lend itself toward like nicknames all that much. So I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, call me whatever you want. Like, you know,
totally. It's so funny because, like, anything that Warren says, I feel like like you said, "Oh, I forgot you guys can't dance." Like, that like, if anyone else said that, like, my feelings would be hurt, but, like, with
sure.
him saying it, like, it's actually, like, cute that he said that. Like, it was like,
I know.
"Oh, like, I can never be mad
No,
at him,"
you don't you
Like
don't take it personally. Like, I mean, that's
yeah,
the thing though. Like in general in this industry, it's like you can't really take anything personally.
right.
And if you do, you're gonna have a bad time.
Real. The
Yeah.
imposter syndrome, right? It just
Oh
it'll
yeah.
It'll get you.
For sure, for sure.
Well, let's talk about Hazbin because I literally like I was late to the train. I'm so mad that I was late to the train. But I'm glad that
Yes, and I'm mad at you too. How dare you be so late?
honestly though, like what was I waiting for? Like what? It's so good.
I don't think you're late. It came out this year. You're not late to the train.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
That makes me feel a little better. But okay, anyways, I'm mad at myself. And so I watched it and I was like blown away and I wasn't like completely hooked until that episode 4, or I don't
Sure.
even know what episode it was, but it was
No, you're
Angel
correct.
Dust. Like we finally find out like who this guy really is, and it
Sure.
became much more than like this hell world that like y'all are in, and it became
Yeah.
so serious. And I was like, "Oh yes, like the
Yeah.
drama."
Yes, yeah, I know. Well, I think it takes a couple episodes, for them because Viv has
Absolutely.
created such a broad, expansive world that has such a variety of characters in it too. And there needs to be time taken to really for people to just even get a snapshot of what it is before you go that deep, you know?
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it's a really I think they knocked it out of the ballpark with season 1, and I'm
Oh
really
my
excited
god.
for season 2 too.
The way that it's crafted is so brilliant because, like you said, you have to introduce everything, you have to set everything up in order for it to be as impactful as it was.
Yeah.
Like the way that it just all came together, and then the way that it was wrapped up, it's like, cool, we can go down this route, we can go down this route, we can go down this route. Like, like there's so many
Yeah.
things going on in this world that like you just can't get enough.
No.
And it's so
Yeah.
well done. But I listen, I got to talk to you about this because voice acting, no joke, right? It's
Mm,
completely different ball game.
mm,
And so I like obviously like they can't see you. They only hear your voice and you have to literally portray every emotion that you need to feel through your voice.
sure.
So like what is that like? Because especially like with voice acting, like you could be in a secluded booth by yourself. Some people are now starting to do it at home. Like, were you at home? Just take me through all of your recording process and kind of
Sure.
was this your first time doing voice acting? Like, tell me about it. Like, I love it. I just want
Yeah,
to talk.
yeah. It's it's kind of funny saying like, oh, it's a whole different ball game. It's like not in a way. I think one thing I
Really?
love about about experiencing like working in different mediums or like, TV to stage, stage to voiceover, voiceover to, whatever else, like even my songwriting too. Like there is
Mm,
across all creative mediums some type of crossover in some capacity and ways in which every facet informs and reflects on the other facets. I mean, it's kind of like you watch a movie and you're seeing so many different creative mediums come together to put on a story and all work together. Like, so this is all to say, like, voiceover didn't feel out of the norm at all. In
wow.
fact, it felt a lot like theater. It felt a lot like a midway between theater and television, right? Because we're going in to this studio where it's our job, contrary to theater where you're working on a performance of a
Hmm.
character over the course of many months that then you will stick to when the show opens. um,
Right.
in TV and film and voiceover, you go, you read, you do an ABC take of each line for a script that you got the night before, 2 nights before, and you're giving like an A take that is, adheres to the script, a B take that has maybe a little bit of like your own take in inflection wise and everything, and different type of variation, and then a third take that gives, more variation after that. Like you're there to give them as much options as possible, because in television and film, the cutting room floor, like the editor, it's the editing,
Yeah.
is what the heart of that medium is. So as an actor, the best thing that you can do is give variation, and so that was very TV and film to me. And then, but then there was another facet of it where I'm realizing, okay, my voice is all I have to give this character. How do I
Right.
make that? How do I make as profound as an impact as I possibly can with just that one mode of communication? They can't see my body, they can't see, you know, anything else that
Right.
I'm doing. And very quickly I realized, oh, okay, just because they can't see it doesn't mean that my physicality is not translating through my voice. I mean, how
Yes.
you sound, how you speak when you are hunched over is very different from how you speak when you're standing really, like upright, or doing, anything like, and if there's like, you have to do efforts a lot, what they call efforts in the script of drinking water, or like chopping something up. And if
Yeah.
it is pretty like easy to tell when somebody's doing that and not actually doing the movement of chopping something up, or but this is all to say, like, physicality is so important to voiceover, is what I found out. And that, to me, I'm like, oh, I feel like a theater actor is especially predisposed to voiceover, because we're very good at being in our bodies, and
Yes.
using that to help transmit, what needs to be transmitted through your voice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a bit of a blend, and I liked it.
I love that. I love that you say that because I think, like I've always said, like Broadway performers are like the perfect voice actors, just like vocalizing on Broadway, the TV and film, you have a camera in your face, so you don't have to give as much, right? But with
Hmm.
like a voiceover room, it's the TV film vibe where it's like, would you scene at a time or line by line, whatever you need to like, get the take.
Yeah,
But you also need to act a little bigger as you would like in performing for the back row of the balcony, of a
sure.
Broadway theater. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's interesting to hear you kind of say that, like, in a sense, it's just those two put together, right?
yeah, yeah. At
I
least
love
that's
that.
how I rationalize it in my mind.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it makes total sense.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so like with the whole voice acting, right? And you finding this who Angel Dust is, right? How he
Hmm.
talks, all of that. The voice, incredible, iconic. Okay, it's just so freaking good. All of it, like everyone, Alex Brightman, everyone, y'all are performing, y'all are giving it. Um, yeah, I love it. So like for you, what is that finding Angel? Are you just out loud saying lines until you like are that's the one, like, or is it kind of like you saw the character, the drawing of it, and we're like, oh, he would sound like this, like what is that
Hmm.
for you?
Well, once again, it's a multitude of things, right?
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and very much a lot of the things that you just said too. I had done like a sort of Brooklyn accent when I was playing like Crutchy in
Oh
Newsies,
yes.
and so like, that sat like down here, and kind of just a lower register. I wasn't doing much, and then I looked at like the rendering of the character, and it was like, okay, Brooklyn accent, but then, okay, here's the actual, like, what the character looks like. Oh, he's kind of lanky, he's a little slinky, he's kind of like, like, he's, though I would imagine, I remember the first thing I realized is like the way I think he moves is a lot more, you know um he has a sense of flow to him, and so that made me want to make the voice like a lot more, I don't know, maybe sultry. But then he also very much, like, right from the get-go, I was like, okay, but I need to heighten the pitch of this so that it's not like down
Uh-huh.
here, it's like up here, and then maybe like, it's kind of, there's like a slinky vibe to him, and
Yeah.
and something that like has such kind of like ease to it, and playfulness too is like was so important. So it was cool because the audition that I did for Angel was all very funny lines. It was all
Yeah,
very like haha, oh my god, this guy is ridiculous and hilarious and I love him. And
sure.
and um and that's what I came to like understand his voice and his character as before we started recording and for the first couple, episodes. And then we got to, episode 3, episode 4, and I started to see, because we get all these scripts sequentially. We don't receive everything at
Yeah.
the start. So we get the script for 1, we record 1. We get the script for 2, then we record 2. And So then it wasn't until I got 3 and 4 that I was like, oh wow, oh, so how does he sound when he's not performing for people?
Uh-huh.
How does he sound when it's Anthony as opposed to Angel Dust, right? Like I started to see, oh, he is living kind of in two separate worlds, both very
Right.
valid worlds, but two separate worlds in personality wise. So, how do things change when that happens? And so, there is in the same sense like pitch wise that I remember thinking, okay, I need to be deliberate about when he kind of comes down a little bit out of that performance mode that he locks into.
Right.
So yeah, really really interesting, like cool
Yeah.
stuff that I've always really enjoyed. And I mean, I love doing different voices. This is my first voiceover gig, and I mean, what a hell of a first voiceover gig to get into. But other than that, like I've just always enjoyed doing impressions of people throughout my life,
Yeah.
and making up voices. So the fact that I get to voice Angel and then also like the Egg Boys, two totally different, sides of the
Yes.
spectrum is really great. I love it.
It's awesome. So, like, there's obviously there's obviously, like, a huge fan following for this show,
Yeah.
and that's, like, why I was like, "Ugh, I can't believe I was on this train sooner," because, like, everyone was talking about it, and I was like, "What? A cartoon with Broadway
Yeah.
actors? You don't
Yeah.
say." And
You
so
don't
I was
say.
I was slacking, and so, yeah, like, then this whole thing came out, and, like, now it's a hit, and I see fan art that you are reposting all the time and all that. Like, is it weird to, like, kinda be known as, like, a cartoon right now? Like, what, like, because people are drawing Blake in a seated position next to cast members, but y'all are the cartoons? Like, what is
Mhm.
that whole
Mhm.
thing like? Is it
Uh, it,
weird?
it is. I mean, it's silly. I love it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing is like, um, I I really enjoy that there is such an interest and a pairing of like us to our characters. Um, I think it's fun, and I think it's also a really cool way for us all to like keep the story alive and like keep our interest in the show alive when there's no new content, right, like in between seasons.
Yeah,
Um and obviously like we're going out on conventions and stuff, and so which have been just the most wonderful experiences, because we all recorded in isolation, we all were alone,
right.
albeit with the creative team um on the other end, helping us record. But we didn't like record. I didn't record my lines, and then Keith, was in the room with me recording my lines, his lines as well.
Right.
We all did it in isolation, and so therefore we hadn't really like formed personal relationships with each other. And so suddenly going to these conventions, it's these friendships that are just like starting to bloom and bloom and bloom, and I've had a wonderful moment that I think the fans have too, like realizing, oh my God, I like these people actually like each other. And then I'm at these conventions being like, oh my God, I really like these people. Like I love the people I'm in this cast with. Um,
Yeah,
and it's been that has been really great that people are as excited about those friendships as I'm excited,
truly.
so it's been a funny time, obviously, with like um it's not something I ever like really fathomed that I would post a picture and then somebody would draw my, like the character I'm voicing in as that picture as me. Um
Right.
I think obviously there's a point that this all gets to, right? Where like it's a bit of a breaking point where, not conflating are the actor with the actual characters, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that really only it is in terms of like characters like Joel Perez's character, like
Yeah.
Valentino, who is a pretty abusive and controversial figure. And when people are like coming up to his table and being like, "Oh, I hate you," and he's like, "Well, it's not me, so
Right.
actually, that's the character." I didn't know if you knew
Yeah.
that. But it makes me think of like Lena Headey in Game of Thrones playing Cersei Lannister, getting death threats of like. I mean,
Right.
obviously, it's nothing that drastic, but there is a very real like thing that happens when we consume content that we really love and we identify with and are so
Yeah.
interested in, and then it's hard for that the introduction of somebody's face and being in a character, and then coming to your brain kind of rewiring and coming to the conclusion like, they okay, but they are a person and they aren't necessarily that character at all, you know
Yeah.
so it's all been just interesting. It's been a really interesting time.
Yeah, but, like, in a sense, like, them coming up to you and being like, "Oh, I hate you," like, low key, that's a compliment. That means you're doing
Like,
your job,
yeah, like,
like,
hey, let's go.
yeah, like, they're supposed
Yeah.
to hate you, like, you're crushing it, like, good job, keep going.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
so
good point, good point.
it's so weird, but, like, low key, like, you have to, like, rewire your brain a little bit there.
Yeah,
Um,
a little bit,
yeah, but like you mentioned, I mean, the show deals with some difficult conversations and some difficult
definitely.
themes, and especially with your character, you're a porn star, and then you also like sold your soul to like a devil, and like
Yeah.
all of these things that are going on, and you've got a lot going on up here, and you've got a lot going on in here, so how, like, putting yourself in that kind of mindset has to
Mhm.
be, like, challenging, right? Like, and, like, how do you kind of do that in a healthy manner and make sure that, like, you can escape that place before it, like, really starts, like, affecting you?
For sure. I mean, I think the first place that I turn to, all in all, even though I don't have the specific experience that Angel has, I look for places in my life in which I have felt similar to how he's
Mhm.
feeling in certain scenes. I mean, the sense of
Absolutely.
like, I do definitely in terms of like his relationship with Val, like he signed his life away. And he's on contract with Val. He's regretting it. He wants to get
Mm.
out of it, but then again, he feels like he did this to himself. And so so is he really worthy of getting out of it? It's like that is an experience that like I feel like I've had loads of times where I'm like, "Oh shit, well I got myself into this."
Right.
And I just have to like grin and bear it, and if I would have been smarter, this wouldn't have happened. So like maybe I just deserve what's happening to me. And That's a very real point that we get to. Like
Yeah.
it's a tough place. I mean, even when you have people telling you that you deserve something better. I think
Yeah.
there's definitely been relationships that I've been in my life, whether that's friendships or romantic, where it's very much like you accept the love that you think you deserve.
Mm,
And that's a lesson that I think a lot of us learn over the course of our lives, and very much a lesson that Angel is still in the process of learning within the context of the show. So that was like the first thing where I was like, okay, what moments of my life have I know that I've experienced a disparate type of situation where, I think I'm not worthy of like a better situation. Okay, cool,
right.
and then just I think so going through things like that in terms of the character, trying to relate empathetically as much as possible to his
Right.
situation, and knowing that I am not Angel.
Yeah.
My life experience is not Angel's experience, and Angel's experience is not my life experience. Chopin's life experience is not my life experience. But what I can do is try to find as many parallels as I possibly can,
Mm,
instead of telling myself, like oh well, I haven't experienced this type of abuse, so therefore I shouldn't, I don't know
mm,
how to play this character, you know what I mean? Like there are as many ways as that I can educate myself and empathize, even if I can't
mm.
sympathize. They're talking to people who have had that experience, ways that they have um tried to process the situation. So, like, I mean, just as many ways as possible. And so that was really the first thing. Secondly, was being able to perform within the studio in an environment that, and this is a part of the process that I have less control over, but being able to be in an environment in which I feel comfortable to
Yeah.
be able to record stuff like this, or anything. And that was something that the creative team did an absolutely wonderful job, especially in episode 4, where we could just take our time with it, and we
I
could
love
we
that.
could really just do the story as much service as possible, and Angel as much of a service as possible. But yeah, I mean, I'm very thankful to the whole team for like being so supportive, and everything, and also just for like telling the story in general. I think a
Yeah.
huge part from the get-go is that understanding people's capacity to connect with material when that they see on TV, and
Yeah.
how important it is that you tell a story as authentically and sensitively as possible, so that it can be as helpful, right, to people as it can. Um, yeah, so
I
it was a
love
good
it.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so well said. You're brilliant. And like the way that you are, no, seriously, like, and the way that you have, like, approach these characters is just fascinating to hear about. So I appreciate you sharing all this. I want to leave it on a little bit of a lighter topic, and
Sure.
do a couple more questions, and then we'll let you go. Um, have you watched the show? Like, are you someone that can, like, listen to your voice, or are you
Oh,
kinda like, "Oh, I don't really want to." Like, what's that
yeah,
like for
I
you?
can. I mean, I've
Yeah.
definitely watched season 1. And it's kind of weird because I listened to it, and I'm like, I had a hot second of being like, "Oh, do I, am I gonna judge this? Am I gonna feel weird about this?"
Right.
It doesn't really matter how I feel. Like, I came to that conclusion like really quickly, even
Go
before
on.
I did Hazbin Hotel. Is like, nobody really like cares how you feel. Like nobody's thinking, like I know that sounds bad, sure, but in the context of like acting, it
Yeah.
doesn't it doesn't matter. Like I did the job, and now it's up to everyone else, you know? It's the
Yeah.
same thing when you make a song, and the song is mine as I'm making it, and it's an act of, communion between me and the song. It's mine. I own it, and then I get it done, and I put it out, and it ceases to be mine, you
Yeah.
know? Now it is for everybody else to project onto and attach themselves to, and reflect their own lived experience onto. And it's the same way when you're acting, when you put a performance, on television, on voiceover, on Broadway. It becomes, you do what you can to make the performance truthful to you and what you want to put into it. But then when it's out there, anything that anybody thinks about your performance has everything to do with them and nothing to do with you, you know?
Yeah,
And that's not to say that if like, you shouldn't be like worthy of praise or anything.
sure.
But to a certain extent, it's like praise or bad critiques, or bad
Yeah,
reviews. They don't really, they're about everybody else. They're not about you.
it's a tricky thing in this industry because like we are our worst critics by far. But
For
like
sure.
at the end of the day, like we are, it is a collaboration and we are in a room with insanely more talented people and like more knowledgeable people, like we are in the hands of like good people, and at some point we have to like trust them and like
Mhm.
be like, they wouldn't, especially with like a TV show, like you give them all these takes, they would take the best one, like you're kind of putting yourselves in the
You
hands of
hope, you
directors
hope.
and yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Like
I mean,
you
it
may not
is.
think it's the best, but like they, for the story and for the overall piece, like that's what they think is most serviceable. So like you kind
Right,
of have to
right.
like trust that, right?
Understanding the limitations of your vocation. Like, it is,
Right.
this is my little corner. I can only control so much within this corner,
Yeah.
and then it's up to everybody else. And TV is like a huge. I mean, my God, like the Capricorn in me wants to be like have control over everything,
Real.
and doing stuff like TV, doing stuff like voiceover is um where I literally have to just be like, okay, here's some variations, here you go, bye,
Yeah.
is like terrifying, because it's
Yeah.
totally not up to me. It's up to
Real.
the
And it's always,
editors.
it's the worst when it's like, oh, but I could do it better. And they're like, nope, that's the one. And I'm like,
That's all right.
okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Like,
fine,
oh,
fine, yeah.
I
I guess
quitting.
I'll just trust you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious to know. I have one last question for you, and I'll let you go. Besides Angel Dust, who is your favorite character in Hazbin Hotel and why?
Nifty.
Nifty.
It's
You didn't
it's
even have to
definitely.
think.
No, no. Like, we also get the questions like these at conventions
Oh,
all the time.
really?
So,
Oh,
like, yeah,
shoot.
yeah.
Okay, okay, fair enough.
Oh man.
I thought that was a good one.
um, no, it's so good. It's so good, Eli. It has to be Nifty. She is chaos. She is
Yeah,
absolute chaos. Also, I love Kamiko so much. Like, she's so freaking funny.
yeah.
Um, and every time Nifty is on the screen, I'm laughing my ass off, because
Mhm.
I never the whole season, I'm like, I never knew what was gonna come out of her mouth next, like, at
So
all.
real.
So that one's a big one. I love the character. And let me also say, like, at conventions, anybody who cosplays Nifty, like, watch out, because there's something about the chaotic energy that she inhabits, that anybody who cosplays her, it gives them full, like, full permission to just be balls to the walls
Okay.
crazy.
Oh my god. I love it. And I love
Yeah.
that Amazon Prime, like, while I'm watching, like, I just tap the screen and it's like, "Oh my god, wait, that's Kamiko. Oh my god, wait, that's
Yes.
Alex. Wait." It's great that it does that. It's my
It's
favorite thing.
crazy. It was so wild. I remember, like, sitting down and watching, when it premiered with a bunch of friends, and we paused it, and everyone was like, "Ah, that's you, that's you." I was like, "Ah!"
There you go.
It's
You are on the
kooky.
screen. I can't see
It's
my face on the screen.
kooky. Yeah, exactly,
It's
exactly.
awesome. Well, hey, listen, like I said, these fans are no joke, so I'm sure they'll eat this up, and I appreciate your time. Alex Brightman seems to just make cult fan base after cult fan base, so I
Dude,
think
I
he
mean, he's prolific. It's crazy. I do any chance I get to do a convention with him is always really, really wonderful. I mean,
I bet it's
it's
bonkers.
such a good group. It's such a good group. Yeah,
I love it.
we're having
Y'all are
fun. We're
so
having fun.
great. It looks like an absolute blast, and, it just gives more and more people a reason to fall in love with you guys and the show, and your characters. So, shout out to you guys, and I can't thank you enough for sharing all of this great stuff. I know we went super long, so,
Oh, that's
I don't wanna
okay.
take any more of your day, but you obviously have so much to take a bow for, so, thanks again for sharing all this great insight into your career.
Thank you so much, Eli. Thanks for having me. I've had a really fun time.